Chapter 13. The early light of dawn was beginning to filter through the window when I came out of the bathroom. Simone was still asleep, the red bedspread pulled beneath her chin. "Wake up," I whispered, shaking her shoulder. Simone stirred, then buried her head under the pillow. It hadn't taken much to convince her to let me sleep on the cot, but it was the least I could do. We'd stayed up late researching the spear, the hastati, and the medieval city of Civita, but more importantly, we'd come up with a plan. "Simone, come on!" I sat on the foot of the bed. "The car is probably outside already." "They'll wait," she mumbled, still not moving. "They always do." I took a deep breath. Thanks to her, we had a driver to take us on the 2-hour journey, but we needed to leave the monastery before anyone noticed. I looked at the small clock on the night table. "Simone, it's almost 6. We really have to go." She rubbed her eyes open. I know. "Give me 3 minutes, okay?" A real 3 minutes. Hurry. I grabbed a pen and pulled my father's journal from under the mattress. Ripping out a blank page from the back, I thought about what to write to Brother Gregorio. It would have to be a "thank you, but no thank you" type of note. Short and simple. "Dear Brother Gregorio, thanks for everything. We'll be back after we have the spear. Please check on my dad and make sure he's safe. We will be careful, I promise. Cassie." I straightened up the bedspread and placed the note on top of the pillow. "Ready?" Simone hopped out of the bathroom, putting on her left shoe. "Yeah." I slung my bag across my body, slipped in the journal, and helped Simone silently push the chair away from the door. I had feared that the old, heavy door would creak as we slowly pulled it open, but it stayed silent. We had managed to make it down the stairs without a sound, but now we faced the 3 deadbolts on the front door. It didn't matter how careful we were turning each knob. A clanking sound reverberated through the stillness of the monastery as we unlocked each one. I glanced around, but no one showed up. "Let's go," Simone said, pulling open the door and stepping outside. I couldn't move. It was like my feet had suddenly been clamped down to the floor. The reality of what I was doing, what I was asking Simone to do, smacked me in the face. I was leaving the supposed security of the monastery and putting everything at risk again. What if I failed or got us both killed? I wasn't really prepared for this kind of thing. My mouth went dry. "What?" Simone looked back at me. "Second thoughts?" Across the street I could see a chauffeur, wearing his dark suit and driver's cap, standing by the black sedan. We only had to walk over and tell him where we wanted to go. I took a deep breath. Whether this spear was legit or not, I knew that my choices would determine our destiny and my dad's. "We'll be fine," I told myself. "We'll find the spear, save my dad, and everything will go back to normal." "Seriously, we can go back in." Simone got closer. "I'll stay with you. No matter what, I've got your back." "No." I took a step forward and closed the door behind me. "We can do this." We were 2 steps onto the sidewalk, about to cross the street, when I noticed the chauffeur's profile. My stomach rolled, and I could feel bile rising to my throat. His ear. The bottom half was missing. "Simone, stop!" I grabbed her arm. "It's him," I whispered, slowly inching back toward the monastery, trying not to attract attention. Simone looked up and down the empty street. "Who? No one else is out here." I was already at the monastery door, trying to open it. "The guy I saw outside your house. The one I thought looked suspicious right before all the shooting." I shook the door. It didn't budge. "You sure? I ignored her. I glanced back and saw the chauffeur stiffen as our eyes met. He knew I recognized him. I pounded my fist on the monastery door, but there was no time. "Run!" I pulled Simone by her shirt sleeve and raced down the street. "Cassie!" Simone called out, half a step behind me. "Trust me," I said, afraid that any minute bullets would fly. We were getting close to an intersection. I didn't dare look back for fear that the half-eared man was only an arm's length away from grabbing us. We rounded the corner when a small white car zoomed past us, only to slam on the brakes, jump the curb, and block our escape. The car's passenger door flew open. "Get in!" Asher shouted. There was no hesitation. I didn't even stop to consider what Asher was doing, driving around at 6 in the morning, or how the half-eared man had come to be our chauffeur. I jumped in, with Simone clamoring over me. "Drive!" I yelled. Asher didn't wait for us to close the door. With Simone sitting on top of me in the front seat, he peeled out, the door slamming shut on its own. Simone crawled to the back. "I don't see anyone behind us," she said, catching her breath and looking out the window. I turned around to confirm we weren't being followed. There was no one. "Why were you running?" Asher asked, making a quick right turn onto the larger street of Via Nazionale. "The chauffeur." I kept looking behind us through the side view mirror. "He was outside Simone's house when the shooting started. He's one of them." "Are you sure?" Simone stuck her head between the two seats. "Maybe he just looked like the guy. I mean, I've always used that car service." The guy was missing the bottom half of his ear. It was the same guy. Fine, fine. Simone inched back. "At least I didn't tell the service where we wanted to go." Asher didn't slow down, getting us onto the main road of Via Vittorio, and putting as much distance between us and the monastery as possible. Finally catching my breath, I realized that it was too much of a coincidence for Asher to have been driving by when we were being chased. "Where are you taking us?" I asked him. "Wherever you want," he answered, stopping behind a garbage truck that was about to turn onto a side street. "And you just happened to be outside in a car at 6 in the morning?" Simone questioned him from the back seat. "I don't think you're even old enough to legally drive." "So? I do a lot of things I'm not old enough to do." He glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Up ahead, I could see a 3-story, peach-colored building with a small guardhouse in front. A large American flag was waving from the top center balcony. It was the U.S. Embassy. I considered how much injury I'd sustain if I jumped out of a moving car. "Seriously, what were you doing there?" I stared at the building as we passed it. Normally, the embassy would be the first place to go for help, but nothing about the last 24 hours had been normal, and my father had been very clear about not trusting anyone. Asher took a quick look at me before focusing on the road again. "It was my uncle's idea. He had me waiting outside for you once he saw that you wanted to leave." "You two were listening to us last night?" Simone asked. "Gross." "No, I don't invade people's privacy," he answered, an obvious reference to our sneaking in his room. "But my laptop has always had remote access. My uncle can see anything you type up." "Equally creepy," Simone muttered. "So he was fine with me leaving?" I asked, ignoring the back and forth between Asher and Simone. "I don't think it's you that he wanted, but he knew he couldn't stop you. He was surprised that you'd leave so soon, but since you contacted a driver, he knew you were serious and he had to act fast." I felt like I was a pawn in all of this, where even if I thought of decisions were my own, they had already been calculated by someone else. It didn't matter what choices I made. It felt like my destiny was in someone else's hands. Wait, did Brother Gregorio know the half-eared guy would be there? No. Asher kept his eyes on the road, but he worried someone might come after you. That's why he asked that I follow you. You know, help out if you got into trouble. Guess I was needed a little earlier than expected. Yeah, right, Simone shook her head. He's so worried that he leaves it up to you to protect us? Protect and serve. That's what Asher had said his job was. Zio is worried, and he really does want Cassie to be safe. Asher glanced over at me. You should know that my uncle sacrificed everything when he left his life with the Hastati. He believed that their work protecting the spear was important, but he couldn't be part of killing innocent people who had the mark. He gave it all up to help people like you. I nodded, but I could hear Simone grumble something in the back. My heartbeat finally slowed down to a more normal rhythm as we all fell into an uncomfortable silence. It was strange. Even though I barely knew Asher, I did feel safe with him around. Maybe it was a numbers thing, 3 people being better than 2. Maybe it was something else. Asher continued driving, making a few turns that led us away from the center of Rome. Finally, he spoke up. So what's in Civita de Bagnoregio? I stayed silent. How did he know that's where we were going? Then I remembered that Brother Gregorio could see everything we researched last night. That is where we're going, Asher paused. Right? Before I could answer, Simone piped up. We? I don't remember inviting you. The other driver didn't really seem to work out now, did he? Asher retorted. I opened my eyes as wide as I could at Simone. She had to be a little nicer to Asher if we wanted his help to get where we needed to go. It was something my dad mentioned. Did he say anything else? I realized that if Asher was going to stick with us, I'd have to let him in on what my dad had written, but I wasn't ready to trust him. This was going to be a need-to-know kind of basis. It's a bit strange, but he said, Nadie recibe el secreto hasta que el hombre que nadie ve contesta la pregunta, which means, no one receives the secret until the man that no one sees answers the question. He grinned, and a dimple appeared high on his cheek. I took 5 years of Spanish. He paused for a moment. So I'm guessing you're going to look for the man no one sees, right? Exactly, I said. We find him, then hopefully the secret is revealed. Behind us, Simone was bent over, and I could hear her unzipping something. I turned completely around to see her opening a backpack by her feet. What's in here, Asher? She asked, although she was already rummaging through it. Just some clothes and stuff I brought. Didn't know how long I'd be following you. Simone took inventory. Water bottles, croissants, a first aid kit, zip ties, duct tape, a switchblade? For emergencies, he explained matter-of-factly. Well, aren't you a Boy Scout? Simone said, then silently mouthed creepy to me before taking a bite out of her croissant. I shrugged, knowing that I wouldn't be able to fully explain why a part of me wanted to trust Asher. It was a gut instinct, something in the way he looked at me that made me feel like he was on my side. By all means, Asher said. Feel free to have some of my food. Thanks, Simone said, her mouth full as she pulled out her phone. Cassie, can you believe my mom is actually texting me to see how I am? She pretended to sound annoyed, but I knew better. She secretly craved the attention, even if she would rather die than admit it. She's already sent me 2 texts this morning. You have a phone? How stupid are you? Get rid of it, Asher commanded. No way, I have everything. Simone, he's right. You shouldn't have it on, I said. They can track us with it. If you have to call your mommy, Asher said sarcastically, you can use one of the burner phones in the side pocket of the bag. I don't have to do anything. Simone unzipped the side pocket. And what's a burner phone? A prepaid cell phone, right? I had heard of the term used in movies when drug dealers or spies wanted to talk to one another. It can't be traced. Asher nodded as he turned onto a ramp for the main highway out of Rome. Yeah, and either throw away your phone or make sure you take the battery out. He glanced at Simone through the rearview mirror. There are ways the Hastati can trace phones even when they're turned off. Simone didn't say anything else and instead pulled out her phone battery. She tossed it on the seat next to the bag of croissants, and I gave her a quick nod of approval. I watched as the scenery outside our window changed from cityscape to countryside. Now, instead of brick and stucco buildings, we were surrounded by large expanses of dried grassy fields that lined the autostrada. It reminded me of the weekend road trips my dad would take me on. I wish he were here now. Suddenly, the warm memory turned cold as I realized that many of those places we visited were written in his notebook. Maybe the trips were part of his search for the spear and had nothing to do with spending time with me. I clenched my teeth. How could he have kept all this from me? He should have told me. I'd be more prepared to deal with all of it. Now I was on the run across Italy from unknown assassins and having to figure things out all on my own. Great job, Poppy. What one? Simone asked, grabbing another croissant. Better to eat now than be hungry later. Sure, I said, although I really had no appetite. I took a bite, and in my head I started going over all the things we'd researched the night before. Asher interrupted my thoughts. So, besides the man that no one sees, what else do you think is in Civita? I answered with the truth. The only thing that matters to anymore, the spear.